Hello and good morning to Leviathan News. Today is August 4th. We got a very special guest. Sam Kazemian here is to talk about the recent announcement of the Frax V3
Hey guys,
proposal.
can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, good morning.
Hello, Seth. Wow, what an honor.
Cool. One sec. Let me actually make sure that everything is working properly.
It's okay. So I'll just give some details. This morning, we all woke up to a proposal announcement that was posted to the Frax forums. You had gone on, Sam, and posted a new FIP 277, onboard finres PBC as Frax V3's off-chain RWA partner. And just to read a little bit, let me bring this up so I can share the screen. So this says, the Frax protocol needs a method to hold cash deposits and other low-risk cash equivalent assets in order to execute its Frax V3 RWA asset strategy. The Frax core developers have been working to create traditional finance infrastructure that can serve its purpose. Earlier this year, Financial Reserves and Asset Exploration Inc., aka finres PBC, was incorporated in the U.S. state of Delaware as a U.S. public benefit C Corp to accomplish this mission. finres PBC is going to be set up to handle traditional finance assets on behalf of the Frax protocol. So its public mission as a nonprofit company is going to provide the Frax protocol with access to safe cash equivalent assets near Fed rates for the benefit of all without seeking to make a profit, and then pass all this revenue back on to the Frax DAO. So,
hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
There we go. Finally, I think my my computer just doesn't like Restream, but I think I finally forced it to like Restream. How's it going, everyone?
It's doing great.
Oh, good.
So we just read through your proposal, and I know this is a long time coming. You actually suggested about it last week in chat. So
yeah. So this has been a long time coming. Just like you said, it's just because it's really hard to actually set up all of this stuff, and I'm sure you guys and everyone, both on this podcast, but also probably listening, if they're either working on a project or started projects, just TradFi tooling and infrastructure, for better or for worse. Obviously my opinion is for worse, but for whatever reason, it's just extremely annoying and long and difficult to set up properly. And obviously there's good things about it, right? Because you are fully compliant and everything is great, and you have like banking partners, and also you have access to essentially government yield, right? T-bills, interest rates, and these kinds of things. So it's taken longer than I would have liked for each individual step, but as I've always kind of hinted in the background, like you're saying, Sam, and I've been saying for a while, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing, not just writing smart contracts only, or just figuring out how to do staking or something like that. We have a really grand vision to connect everything, and so this is the first step. So the first step here is basically our real world asset strategy is to essentially have a isolated public benefit corporation. And the reason for this, and the reason so that it's not like a new for-profit venture, or like trying to raise funds for some kind of new startup thing or whatever, is because the goal with this is to basically serve FXS holders, right? It's to serve the Frax protocol, and it's to serve everyone that are users on chain of the Frax ecosystem and basically the Frax universe, without trying to maximize some kind of value or service fee or anything like that. It's basically a bridge to basically allow on-chain users and on-chain smart contracts protocols that integrate with Frax to have access to real world yields. And so there's a lot of extra stuff to say to that, but The main thing that I want to say is this is actually just the beginning. These are just the initial. If you go down on the proposal a little bit, you'll see that there's just a few kinds of transactions that are possible right now with finres PBC, so this public benefit corporation. But that is not the only thing. In fact, we are looking for and actively actually working from this other banking partner. So it's not just a single regional crypto friendly bank. There's actually a lot of banking partners we're currently talking to. I can't say which ones until they actually allow us to bank with them because of for stuff on their end. But we're working on multiple of those. We're also working with other real world asset companies to onboard finres PBC. In fact, once this proposal went out, what was really interesting is we got hit up by our friends at Ondo that recently, the other day, literally I think yesterday, launched USDY, and then also a few of our other friends and the other project, for example, called Open Eden, which I like, and the team there is really cool as well. That's similar-ish, structurally different, but similar vision of bringing kind of real-world yield on chain. And these all have different kinds of either compliance processes or different types of token permissions, whether it's like a whitelist or it's not a whitelist, the vault is geo blocked or whatever. We're willing to work with a lot of projects and onboard finres PBC where it makes sense for Frax V3's overall strategy. As you guys probably know, because you follow kind of the Frax ecosystem and DeFi very closely, I personally have a what I call a singular real world asset strategy ethos. And what I mean by that is that I think that if you are a dollar peg stablecoin, if you're actually pegging to the US dollar, right, the liability of the US government, the largest economy in the world, I think you need one real world asset to basically solve that stablecoin trilemma, kind of the scalability, decentralization, and basically the collateral, right? Which is, I think that you need access to the interest rate that the issuer of the dollar is willing to pay, essentially the risk-free interest rate. And what I mean by that is I think that in a high rate environment, which is what we're in right now, right? You need access to infinite amount of that interest rate because the government's willing to pay infinite amount of that, right? That's what they can do, right? They can literally pay that interest rate. That's what Jerome Powell does when he shows up at a press conference, right? And he says, now the interest rate is higher. It's like 0.25% more than last month, right? And when it's a low rate environment, the opposite of what's going on right now, you don't need extra bells and whistles and real world assets like lending to car companies or like developing economies or like renewable whatever and stuff like that can default because you have decentralized digital high growth economy right here on chain in a pro growth low rate environment, right? If you think about things like back when rates were near zero, people were paying like 10% to borrow dollars on compound, right? People were essentially, there was almost limitless essentially collateral in over collateralized ETH loans. Now we have LSDs, which the ETH actually pays interest rate on top of that, right? And so my view is essentially a singular real world asset strategy, which is if you have access to the risk-free rate, right, T-bills, reverse repo contracts, or FMA deposits, or right now in our first step, FDIC insured IntraFi deposits at a banking partner, right, which pays out the risk-free rate. If you have access to that, then you're going to be flying in a high rate environment, right? You're going to be able to access that risk-free rate, either somehow distribute it to your DeFi ecosystem or to VFXS holders, however way governance actually votes, right? Now that we're going to have this infrastructure. And the way to actually get access to that singular real world asset strategy is what we're doing with finres PBC. So that's the singular vision. That's the motivation. That's why we're doing this in like a step-by-step manner, and then hopefully eventually have direct FMA access, which is both a regulatory as well as a longer term roadmap item. But seeing as how we're executing step by step, I wouldn't count us out. Come next year or 2025, continue to watch for what we do.
Could you talk a bit about some of the trade-offs that became necessary in this sort of design? Because obviously, like if you are going to be, playing nicely with the U.S. government, you've mentioned that like there has to be like kill abilities for funds within just the not Frax itself, but within the Frax USD. Were there other sort of design trade-offs that needed to be put in place to be able to get this in place?
So Frax, the dollar peg stablecoin, will not have and never has a blacklist, right? Like that's an issuance liability of the Frax protocol, right? The totally decentralized open source protocol. It's more about, like you're saying, how these deposits and this partnership with finres PBC will be custodied. So after the onboarding governance vote, which I assume and hope will be passed by VFXS holders, and I assume it will, then the structural aspects of how it should it be tokenized? Should everyone be able to somehow hold these tokens and redeem them from finres PBC? I actually personally don't think so. I think that that's not necessarily in the finres PBC public mission. It's just to get Frax protocol access to this singular real world asset strategy. So to answer your question, it depends, right? If there's tokenizations of those assets, yeah, then the community is going to have to decide how, or they're going to be blacklists for those or white lists, which personally I'm kind of against. I think it's a little bit over compliant because there's no precedent for it. If it turns out that that's what's legally required, then so be it. But I actually don't think that there needs to be any discussion for even any blacklist or anything, because finres PBC doesn't necessarily have to have this open redemption minting system. It just needs a relationship with the Frax protocol to do its public benefit mission, right? And so that's the most important part, in my opinion.
It's very cool. So how is this going to differ from like MakerStrategy?
So two things. One is that MakerStrategy is, as far as I know, right now, basically to partner with a lot of external kind of protocols. I think Block Tower is one of them. They also have lent out some external, private companies in terms of their real world asset. They have what I call the multi-pronged real world asset strategy. And as I understood what Rune described is, if you have a lot of just diverse loans everywhere in a bunch of jurisdictions and these kinds of things, it becomes hard to kind of, whack the weasel with the mallet, so to speak, right? Like if to kind of get at where all of the real world asset loans are, right? I have the opposite view. Again, I'm not saying that our view is for sure correct, but our thesis driven view is that you don't need to lend to private corporations that can default. I think that there's actually already a pretty small default already in Maker's real world asset strategy, but they're huge, so it doesn't matter. I think it was like a couple $1 million. Our view is we just want direct access to the Fed rate or near risk-free rate of the U.S. government through a dedicated not-for-profit for public benefit corporation that's mission is to bring that to the Frax universe, basically. So that's the one thing that differs. The second thing that I actually think is the killer feature is you guys will have to wait once the Frax V3 specs are released, because Frax will be the only, as far as I know, actually, I think I'll go as far as to say it will be the only stablecoin that will not have to match duration risk with the interest rate that it pays out from its real world asset strategy. And that's actually based on a unique part of the V3 design, and we'll explain that once we announce that. And what that'll allow Frax to do, by the way, is to actually pay out a much higher interest rate than the base 5% without having to worry about duration risk. So, for example, right now, Maker's DSR, I think it's like 3.6, but they have this thing where they want to increase it to 8. But then if everyone stakes right at the terminal rate, it'll just go down to 5%, right? Which is basically 5.5% or something, which is the current Fed rate, right? They can't give like 7% to every single Maker holder, right? Because if you think about it, 7% means you're buying like 2-year treasuries, right? You have to basically go and buy treasuries that essentially lock in lending to the US government for 2 years, right? And they can't do that because what if everyone wants to redeem their DAI for $1 right now? Then they have duration risk, right? Duration risk means that you like lend long, and then you're worried that your on-demand deposits, right? Your stablecoin holders basically want out. Classic bank run, right? What happened to Silicon Valley Bank, right? They lent long to the U.S. government. Everyone wanted their money back out. They couldn't actually do it, right? Frax V3 actually solves that in a really unique way, and allows us to actually have access to longer yields. And I think maybe Sam might know or might have guessed like part of the mechanism for it, but and I think you're probably on top of it, but I will refrain from giving extra details until we make that spec live.
It's very exciting. We had a couple of questions from the audience. We'll take one from Clones Cody saying, how will it affect like Frax in terms of backing or long-term depeg possibility due to permission access of the RIWAs? AKA, what's the risk for the Frax stable protocol?
That's a good question. So, well, the real world assets, you can just think of them to keep it simple, just either fiat that's yielding at the risk-free rate, right, through IntraFi, FDIC insured accounts, or just super short-dated T-bills, which is exactly, for example, what Circle has. We'll describe the other stuff, the thing I just said about longer duration and stuff later. But for now, just think of it like that. It basically means part of Frax's supply can be basically a hybrid fiat coin of sorts. That's basically what it means, right? And so because, for example, finres PBC has the ability to mint and redeem other fiat coins like USDP, right? Like Paxos, like USDC, it can also quickly essentially change that fiat into other liquid stablecoins and just, for example, send it back to the Frax DAO. The Frax DAO LPs it on Curve or through AMOs and things like that. It's basically like a seamless bridge into traditional financial piping, right? It's the traditional financial ecosystem. Obviously, the risks of this stuff is that, if you're thinking of regulatory risks, right, the risks are like compliance, making sure this stuff is done right, clean and transparent attestations, right? Making sure that you're actually showing what are the accounts, where are they, what kind of accounts are they, how much is deposited in there. Obviously, no commingling of funds and accounts, no rehypothecation. All of these things are things you have to consider. I think that those are to answer the question, those are the concerns. I'm very, very confident that those are not actually going to be issues for Frax and finres PBC.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you only wanted to come on for 15, 20 minutes.
I can take one more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to Garrett or DeFi Advisor or Mughal if you want.
I was just going to ask a quick question. How many days away are we from all of this being available on chain?
Yeah, so great question. Well, finres PBC is ready. That part, so that's why I put the governance proposal now to actually get a formal vote, and then the next step is to give extra details in a follow-on vote of, like, for example, deposit this much assets or move like 100 million USDC into this and either tokenize it or don't or whatever. So that's in a matter of days. So that's ready. Frax V3 stuff, I think in a matter of a couple of weeks, give or take, maybe like 3, 4, something like that. Yeah.
It's right around the corner.
Yes, sir.
Well, great. Well,
And
Sam,
just for those who don't know, if you're interested in trading on this, that would be buying the FXS token.
buying Frax because
Buying
it'll be
Frax.
it'll be more resilient, better backed.
Yeah, and better yield. Obviously not financial advice, but it seems like the markets liked it this morning. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And as usual, I'll be on Telegram and love what you guys are doing. Take care.
See you later, Sam. Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it all. Take care.
Goodbye.
And as always, if you have any more questions about Frax and about this Frax V3, feel free to pop into the Telegram channel. Sam is always there to answer questions. I don't think
And feel free to also check out Flywheel DeFi if you're looking at Frax.
We're furiously working in the background right now on a bunch of content for Flywheel. Obviously, we'll be using all these sound clips, and we've got a bunch of interviews coming up with Sam next week. So, in classic Frax fashion, this was just like Sam just posted it to the forums this morning. Woke up to it. My colleague Dave sent me a message at like 8:30 with the links. So very surprising. It's gonna be pretty cool to see this come out. And markets like it as well too, which is great. So good vibes all around.
Yeah, great stuff for a Friday. So your colleague DeFi Dave posted a great tweet basically saying like let me pull it up here. It reads Frax V3 announced. And Viper hackers returning funds, Curve getting distributed and locked, and you're not bullish on send it. I feel more bullish today than I felt in a bit. Plus, on top of it all, we almost buried the lead in that we have the newly unemployed Wajahat OX Mughal joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Right.
No longer.
I'm so excited. Looking forward to it.
What kind of doctor were you again?
I was working in acute medicine, so pretty much just emergency department. All sorts of stuff.
There's people literally dying on the ER tables, so you could go chase shit coins. Welcome to the
team. Well, I actually I was actually in the emergency department the other day, and I actually saw I saw up on Twitter, but I saw this leaflet just like on the wall, and it was about has your patient ever been admitted with a fall? And there was one thing that is said underneath it saying, please check the patient's Frax score. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing from now on.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, it's good to have you. How long did this transition take? And like, what was the process from going from like just the real world to this online world where we just talk about memes and miladies?
Question. I think I actually made my first video about how to buy crypto in 2020. Mm-hmm. So it's been I've been doing this content stuff for a while. I was really focused a lot more on the YouTube side before moving over to Twitter, but now I'm trying to be pretty active on Twitter. So let's see how it goes. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. My plan is to just educate, and whether it's as we were just discussing before, whether it's simple things like discussing or explaining to people how to even go on chain, how to bridge, how to trade on Uniswap, how to buy FXS, just simple things like that, how to provide liquidity. I think educating people is going to really help to bring more people on chain. And I think being able to do that in a trustful way is my plan.
So what's your plan for, you're just going to, is it that you're like YouTube and your other channels supplemented your income enough to where you were able to stop, or you made enough gains with your DGen plays that it's like, oh, I can just tweet about stuff all day?
No, I definitely don't make enough from content just yet. I'm taking a risk, but like I said, I'm fortunate in the sense that the career that I'm in, I can easily go back if I need to. It's very flexible. So yeah, I just want to. I love crypto. I love DeFi, and I love educating. So I'm just gonna follow my passion.
Well, very glad you're here to break down because there's a ton of news that we all need some education on.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So over the night, we actually it's nice to have some good stories, right? Because this whole week has been a little bit like depressing and sad with all the curve news. Literal curve cast for the past week. I don't know if we actually talked about like non-curve news for the past 4 days.
Very briefly.
I'm the I'm the curve maxi. When I feel like it's too much curve news, like that's saying something. But we should at least mention that there's kind of an active story developing where several of the hackers are returning funds at the moment. So it's worth commenting that JPEG hacker has moved the entire amount to a wallet. It's not been confirmed yet that that's the actual JPEG wallet. But given that they've been in dialogue, that's a very good sign. And some of the GMX ETH has been moving as of while we're on this cast here. So there's potential hope out there for like anyone that was affected by the hack that at least things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So here's the JPEG funds. They've been moved to a new wallet. You had 6,000 ETH that was moved into this. Well, they sent 1 ETH first, and they sent another 6,000 ETH. So it's on the move.
That's the total amount that was hacked, by the way. So it's also unclear if it's going to be sent and then 10% would be sent back, or if it's the full recovery. But either way, the JPEG treasury is pretty resilient. So it's exciting news, I would say, for myself as a curve maxi.
Can we talk about the message that was sent yesterday?
Yeah, that's the one.
So
which one?
The curve negotiating team, whoever that is, sent a message.
With the FBI as well. Did you see it?
Well, that one I doubt is credible. But let's start
but it was a good.
one.
It's a good show, even if it's like a charade. It was kind of funny seeing a message like from an address that says like FBI Florida.
So the curve negotiating team, whomever they are, sent a message to the exploiter yesterday, and I'm going to bring this up. It essentially said, but I just want to start with the first couple of words because I found that the most interesting. We as a group, Curve, Metronome, and Alchemix. Questionably, somebody is left out there. JPEG. What does Tetranode have on the exploiter that we don't know?
So I'm just speculating here, but there'd already been some on-chain communications between JPEG and the exploiter, including getting I think that was the one that zkXBT was looking at. So my hunch is just that they already were in communication, so they didn't feel the need to send like message as part of this one.
Okay. So these three groups, Curve, Metronome, and Alchemix, would like to discuss a bounty. Return 10% of the funds that were stolen. And you can send 90% back and you can keep 10. And we won't pursue anything. If you choose not to partake in the voluntary return and complete the process by 6th of August at 8 UTC. So what is that, Sunday? We will expand the bounty to the public and offer the full 10% to the person who is able to identify you in a way that leads to your conviction in the courts. We will pursue you from all angles with the full extent of the law. Contact us, please. So
my theory about the reason that JPEG was not on there is that Tetranode himself, I think, immediately just donned war paint and went into the jungle with his rifle to try and hunt down the hacker.
The Tetranode memes are very good.
Also, this hacker this time he chose to steal from some people that these are not very soft people. Like, I think it's easier to steal from all kinds of other DAOs, maybe smaller DAOs, whatever. But when you actually try to steal from the federation itself, you're going to find yourself finding yourself some enemies.
Exactly. And Tetranode is one of them, apparently.
Yeah, and that's not someone you really want to be trying to look after, like to haunt you or whatever. So I do think that it's quite a very weird situation. It's very different from other hacks in the past, because I've never seen like such a coalition that can actually go after what they're searching for with not only a lot of resources but a lot of brain power. The people at Curve and JPEG and Tetra. These are smart people. They can do stuff. They have connections. They can find stuff.
So looks like there's some new announcement stuff. So it looks like the Alchemix exploiter has returned 4,801 or 819 AL ETH to Alchemix Finance, which he stole just over 5,000. So he returned 90%.
Wow. Because there was also something about the Alchemix ETH that someone swapped a lot of the Alchemix.
Everyone that also swapped for like huge amounts of Alchemix ETH is also sending it back as well too. So,
that's quite nice. I wouldn't have expected that.
The market is healing.
Yeah.
So basically,
go ahead.
If you're keeping score at home, this means of the 5 arguable hacks, because Curve ETH had 2 hacks. But if you're taking a look at the 4 pools, there's been positive developments for each of the pools at this point.
Can you go over them for like a minute so that we
so we just talked about JPEG. So it looks as if the full amount might have been returned. We don't know if that's the full amount, and a bounty will eventually be paid. We talked about the Alchemix one. The Metronome one, there was a large portion that was intercepted by Coffee Babe and returned. And same with the Curve ETH pool, initially the sum amount. So at least some funds look to have been recovered for all 4 of the hacks. So
how much of the money is still missing? Do we know?
So I think the only piece that's not accounted for is that there's one Curve ETH pool hack of about 7 million, I think. That's at least that there's people who keep talking about the 7 million Curve sitting in the wallet that could be dumped when there was going into the sort of like, will Mitch get liquidated saga. So I think that portion is still outstanding, and I don't know that we've heard much from them. But things are developing fast, so it's entirely possible I just missed something while we're on the stream here.
So Coiner in Lobster DAO made a very funny comment. This is some like green text, really. It's like, we steal your money. We threaten you to give us 10% or lose it all. Victims pinky swear on public chain. It's all good if you return 90%. 90% return? Question marks. Clean and Safu 4.
I think that this is very interesting, like as an industry, to see if we can actually deal with stuff like that. Because 10% is, because what I mean is, if this is going to work this time for 10%, then I think next time something like that happens, they're going to get less than 10%. Because the negotiation will be kind of different, because it will be like, why give them 10%? Why not offer them this 5%? And I think it can create kind of a new mentality of how we as an industry deal with all these hacks. Yeah.
So it's questionable whether law enforcement could actually still go after these people. They did recently with Mr. Ahmad, who stole money from I don't know the crypto exchange, but he said he returned some of the money, but then kept some of it and then helped the crypto exchange with their technical vulnerabilities. But they still arrested him. They still put him in jail. So I would say that, you probably should get a lawyer after this with the money that you have, right?
With that 10% that you kept.
Exactly. I don't know who's going to cash it out for you. I don't think you could send that 10% to Coinbase and be like, hey, what's up? Can you cash this out?
Yeah.
I don't even know what you do with it, right? Maybe buy some like NFTs and just stare at your NFTs all day.
Maybe you can just put it into Aave as a loan and
get liquidated?
Borrow some money against it.
So that is good news. Actually, that's really good news. Kind of to wrap up the week. If maybe the last CRV exploiter returns the funds, then everything gets healed in the world and we can go back to.
And by the way, it creates a situation in which so much of that CRV was just now redistributed, like
reemergence of the curve
itself. Yeah, like who knows what really happened with all this story? Because at the end, if all the money comes back and we just find ourselves with a bit different distribution of the CRV and who controls most of it and its voting power, then it kind of gives another perspective on the whole incident from that angle.
So I want to take a moment to thank the Random Anon who sent, let me pull this up, who sent a nice little donation our way to our what is this called, multi-sig wallet that we have set up on Arbitrum. Thank you so much. I think you're the one of the first people that we don't know. So thank you, Anon, and we love the donations. It keeps
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it keeps the software paid for. That'll pay for a month's worth of software. Thank you. And what else do we have? Oh yeah, so there's this nice little kerfuffle between Polygon and zkSync, where Polygon has claimed that zkSync has stolen parts of their code, copy pasted source code without attribution, and making misleading claims about the original work. So they published this article, I believe yesterday. Where is this? Published this nice article talking about how they stole code, gave all the examples, put some nice memes in about like, I made this meme. And it just got into the code.
I think it's silly. I think they should just be working together. It's open source. Work together, build together, make zk tech worth using.
Sure, but the zkSync response was quite tepid, I guess you could say. So this is the response from Alex G. Let me pull this up. I believe this is the right guy. Yeah, the Matter Labs. So it said, every decision we make as a team is driven by our ethos. However, today's accusations are unfounded, misleading, and extremely disappointing coming from a team I highly respect. So the reader of the Polygon Zero post is left with the impression that the Boojum is largely using Plonky 2 code with little no innovation, and that we stole the code essentially based on the reading of that text. He says, I want to believe in the good intentions of the Polygon Zero team, so I'm going to share the facts here. Both Plonky and Boojum are implementations of the Redshift construction. Redshift was introduced by the Matter Labs 3 years before the Plonky paper. Plonky never gave us credit, though the Redshift people did, and we never bothered, and it's great to see them improving on the work. Only 5% of the Boojum code is based on the code of Plonky 2. Wait, didn't they just say that? So they did base it on it, right? If he says 5%.
Yep.
So they did provide clear attribution in line number 1 of the main file module. And they also have in the README file an acknowledgement to Plonky 2. So they could have done it better, obviously, and it's open source code, and they got into benchmarking as well too. So, anyways, interesting back and forth. What did you guys think about it?
Is it plagiarism?
Can you plagiarize open source code?
It's a little tricky, is my understanding. Like, if you substantially rewrite it, but you're inspired by somebody else, you're probably fine. If it's clear you kind of copied it line by line, it's like that. If it, depending on the license, like that can be considered plagiarism.
Yeah. But is it like whatever Polygon Zero did? Like, is it licensed? Like, do they have any copyrights on it? Like, I thought that if code was open code, like open source, then that means that if you do want to, you just copy paste it, and then if you're polite, you give like credit to whoever did it, and if you're not polite, you don't. But really, I don't really know much about it. It's just how I perceive it as when they say open source code.
It's not necessarily the case. I know that with the case of Curve, like the Curve contracts are free to read, so the source is open in that way. But if you just copy it line for line and relaunch it, you
Swerve.
in theory, yeah, Swerve Finance was the case where there's a lot of discussion around this. If that's the case, like Swiss Stake is a Swiss-based entity that has all the IP around Curve and could theoretically file a lawsuit. In the case of Swerve Finance, like, basically, they asserted that they had the rights to, but they said it was so small it wasn't worthwhile for them to pursue it in court.
Yeah.
When was this? A few months ago?
A couple of years back.
So it looks like it's just a case of not having clear attribution, which could all be cleaned up. Just need to adjust the docs, put some more attribution.
What do Polygon actually want out of this, by the way? Do they want to just bring zkSync down, or what are they aiming to do from
I don't know.
talking like this?
I don't know. It's competitive out there right now.
Yeah. Also, it's true. This whole we're all a community, WAGMI, blah blah blah. It's not going to really be the case when the money starts getting close to the table. And I do think that zk is going to be such a huge battle, about who's going to be dominant. Just like the fact that, by the way, I remember that zkSync, just after the Arbitrum airdrop, zkSync all of a sudden had a big announcement about something. I'm not even sure why, but it did give some kind of a feeling that they just want to be known first, you know what I mean? And not that stuff was that much developed and there was a thriving ecosystem on zk already. Mostly okay, they see that the public is waiting for some kind of is hoping for some kind of a new thing to give attention to, and they hopped on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we'll see how this develops over time. It looks like it's probably just a smaller matter. Nobody really said anything when Uniswap came out and essentially said they were going to take CASSwap and CrocSwap ideas. So they're probably coding it. They're probably recoding it. But that's what you said, Garrett, about having inspiration, but not plagiarism.
Yeah, the Swerve Finance case was really funny because in one case they copied the comments over. And there's another part of it where they basically said, we don't understand what this function does, but refer to the curve documentation.
So we also had some news from Off-Chain Labs, who have announced what is called BOLD, and that is going to be Bounded Liquidity Delay. And that's a new dispute protocol that enables permissionless validation for Arbitrum chains. And it's going to potentially remove the need for permission validation, dramatically improving decentralization. So this is moving towards decentralizing the sequencer set.
That's quite exciting, right?
Very
Hopefully
much.
we have Nick on next week to come and share some stuff about it with us.
Mm-hmm. We also had the announcement of GMX. Actually, GMX V2 went live. So the beta is now live on Arbitrum and Avalanche. They added some new markets. So they added Solana, Ripple, LTC, and Doge on Avalanche. And then Solana, XRP, LTC, Doge, and Arbitrum on Arbitrum. Interesting.
Actually, GMX V2, I think, is going to be very interesting. Maybe you can pull up their post about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll pull it up right now.
Because they are adding some features that I think many people have been waiting for quite a long time, especially on the most basic aspect of stuff, new pairs. I think that, up till now, GMX, everything it has done, it did pretty much with only people, not only, but mostly people trading BTC and ETH, the price of BTC and ETH. And now with some new assets, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the community is going to react and whether or not the DApp is going to get a lot more traction. I think it's a very important development for the upcoming future, even if we won't see any difference immediately. But I think in the upcoming months, it can definitely become the basis for quite a lot of new onboarding of activity there. I think stuff is pretty bullish looking on GMX activity-wise. I have no idea about what's going to happen to the GMX price, and obviously not financial advice of any kind.
Yeah, any asset that's got a Chainlink feed can now be added as well, which is
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
multiple collateral types.
Before the show, Rajat and I were talking a little bit about this sort of discrepancy where you look at all this stuff happening on DeFi, and then you look at the number of users and it's 300, and then you look at centralized exchanges and they have thousands of users. And in my opinion, GMX UI is so good, it might be sort of this bridge to getting more users using DeFi. I don't know what do you think about that, Rajat, or others?
Yeah, I think I was looking at it today, just looking at the number of users on different protocols. I think certain option protocols have less than 100 daily users. Even big protocols like Aave have 300 to 400 daily active users. And I know you might not be using something like Aave every single day, but I think when you just compare that to centralized exchanges where there's millions of registered accounts, we're still a long way away. But yeah, I think GMX, probably has a few more daily users. I think it's still less than 1,000 daily users. But if we kind of improve things like user experience, user interface, account abstraction, making wallets easier to use, on and off ramping, all of these things, once they improve, hopefully we should get more people on chain.
So GMX has lost an incredible amount of market share. So back in February, it was the only game in town, pretty much. They had near 100%, like over 90% market share, and they've pretty much lost it since February. They've come down to almost like less than 25% of the market share versus synthetics, or Quinta specifically. Quinta has taken over, really. Probably for several reasons, right? I don't think that I have my own personal views on GMX. I think that it's a bad long-term trading environment if you're a trader. Like, some of the things about GMX are nice, where like the instant liquidity, no slippage, those are great. But those are great for like single trades. If you're doing like a huge long in one direction and that's the only trade you're going to do, that's fine. But for other types of traders, it's just a losing game because of the fees, and also I don't believe they pay a funding rate either. All that goes to GLP.
But now with the version 2, the fees are actually cheaper than Quinta.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because the funding rates are
are
high, right? So you can go to Quinta and get a positive funding rate and get paid to have that trade open. Yeah, and that's something that, like, it's just the way that GMX is built, and that like all the funding rate is sent to GLP, and
But I have a question, sorry, and it's a little bit just away from what we're talking about. Does this mean the end of GLP? What does that mean for all these different Arbitrum protocols that we're building with GLP?
No, I think it's still there. Everybody was just building on the fact that like GLP was getting these like massive rates, but because their market share has declined, the volumes have come down. The rates that you're getting at GMX are just not what they were back in February. Back in February, you could throw some ETH into GLP and essentially be making, like, I believe at one time, like 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
And now the interest rate has come down. You're making 1.46% APR on GMX and GLP. Or sorry, GMX rewards are getting 1.46 APR. GLP is getting 5.76. So like, you are taking an unreasonable amount of risk in the GLP contract in return for what you could earn on ETH in like a staking, or just staking through like Frax or something by a couple of percentage points.
Yeah, but these kind of like, if you're a trader, you're a trader, and like, personally, I actually think that most importantly with GMX V2 is the fact that it's going to allow a whole new narrative of projects to build on it. So, and I do think that they are very well connected with quite a lot of new projects, at least one which is very meaningful that I know of that's building on it, and GMX V2 is going to be like a very significant for them. So it's very interesting for me to see between this like battle between GMX and, like you say, in synthetics. It's a lot of who can attract more protocols to build on them. And
well, Quinta doesn't have to like the difference between, like, I think the funding rate issue is like pretty significant, because as a trader, I don't want to suffer paying the fees that I have to GMX to hold that position open. Like, it's great for gambling. Like, you get, if I have $10 million and I want to open it up like a 50x long on GMX, I can do that, right? And if it's going to be a short-term trade, and I believe there's going to be a ton of volatility, it's a amazing place to be. But if we're going to crab market for the next like year, right? If we're just going to be in these low volatility environments, it's much better to be in a place where you're not paying those exorbitant funding fees. And also, like, pre-GMX V2, like the fees to swap in and out were pretty insane. So I think GMX is actually a worse execution system than Synthetics. Synthetics has built this like great system and that's what's been able to drive market share there. And it just shows in the numbers. So I think it's probably just something inherently in the design of GMX. You can't change how the GMX distributions work, and you also can't enable that funding rate. So your traders are just always losing. You have like negative EV trading on that exchange.
Oh, but I mean,
isn't part of the reason why sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, isn't part of the reason why trading on Quenta is so good is because of the Quenta token initiatives or incentives?
Sure, but even then, I mean, you look at even going to DYDX as well too. I mean, like DYDX pays a very nice funding rate. Like funding rates on Quenta at the moment, like if you want to be short ETH on Quenta, you're getting paid like 20% APR right now. If you want to be short on DYDX right now, you're probably getting paid 10 to 15% in funding rate. If you want to be short on GMX, like you're paying 15% APY to be short. Like it would be better to stick your money in GLP, but GLP is making 5%, and so you would just be better off staking. Like staking ETH now, like the base staking rate for ETH now is like the minimum floor that you have to earn in all of DeFi to even like justify doing something, right? Because like why would you put your assets into GLP earning what the ETH staking rate is for like increased contract risk and not having custody of your funds when you could just self-custody, spin up a validator and make what 5% or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the yields are not really that attractive anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Which means that they have to lose a bunch of TVL until the volumes come down. But if the TVL drops, then the volumes are going to drop because they won't have access to liquidity anymore. It's like it's a very weird system. So
I think it's more complex than that, and there are like other stuff in the equation that's going to make some of the participants do different choices, and it's kind of natural. But it's kind of interesting the points that you're raising. I think we should try and get people from both GMX and Synthetics on and kind of.
I mean, I'm just like they'll talk about it. But I'm just talking about it from like a trading perspective, right? Like trading, especially on like a larger scale, is just about being like having a small EV positive percentage on your trades where you're going to make money over the long term. And GMX,
but some traders are much more like short term oriented.
Of course, I mean, like look at Andrew Kang, who, but because of those incentives, the thing that GMX does well is incentivize people to take these long leverage bets for high volatility moves in one way or the other. And so, they've done well to earn fees, but there's other venues now that have deeper liquidity and like pay you to have those trades open. So I don't know. I mean, it's just my own personal view, but
yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be very interesting to have people from both GMX and Synthetics on to talk about this stuff and present the different use cases and benefits of each one. I think it's actually going to be quite an interesting one. And these are are there any other main actors on the trading scene that?
Oh yeah, a bunch. Yeah. Let me pull up. There's a bunch of competitors that are coming. Let me just bring up this picture again. Like down here, we have DYDX Gains, which is a fork of GMX. Perpetual Protocol is making some name for itself. Level is making a name. What else is happening? Quenta, and that's it. But like, there's a ton of perpetual exchanges that are getting set up, and so I think that there's huge competition for the market makers, right, for liquidity deposits, and so we'll just leave it at that. We'll move it on to some other stories. Somebody wants to come on and tell me why I'm wrong and why there's going to be a GMX revolution. I'd be happy to hear. So, okay, what else do we got? Oh yeah, so a couple of weeks ago we talked about the. Oh no, that's different. Okay, we talked about Curve USD pricing yesterday. And
FFX.
Oh yeah, FFX. Oh yeah, we had the launch of FFX protocol. Garrett, do you want to talk about this?
Well, I could, but I think we have a Aladdin DAO booster here who might be better equipped.
Yeah, but you'd be better at explaining it for sure. I shared some stuff about it, but honestly, I think it's subject, like you're more professional about that kind of stuff. But FX has launched yesterday officially after, I think the development of the project was pretty quick. I think first time Charlene mentioned it to us on the A-Team, which is the media arm of Aladdin DAO, in which it's Subli, Kmetz, Crypto Prophet, and myself. We established it about 4.5 months ago or something like that, maybe a little less, and or exactly actually when I think about it. And development was from the first time she told us about up till yesterday that it's officially live. I think it was kind of quick. I think it shows a lot about, and again, I'm biased here, but I think it shows a lot about Aladdin and the way they see stuff and the way they move towards innovating on new ideas and concepts that they think about at the DAO. It's in a way just a way to hedge ETH and play the ETH game in a way a bit differently than just holding spot ETH or just staking ETH. It's like playing some kind of volatility games on ETH itself. And hopefully we can, I will try to talk to Kmetz and see if he can come on the stream next week, maybe, because he will be able to explain it much better than myself. But of course, you can go and check out the FX protocol. Protocol_FX is the Twitter handle. Go on the Aladdin DAO Discord, and you'll get much more precise information about all that stuff.
So just to recap, there's FX protocol takes your ETH and then it splits it into a stable-ish token. Stable-ish. And then also a leveraged token as well too. And the leveraged token holders essentially take on the risk of any price movements, while the stablecoin holders, stable-ish coin holders, are able to remain stable. It's an interesting design. We talked about it in a previous Leviathan News show where we had on Currents, and it's cool to see. Is there going to be a token?
There's already a token.
Oh, there's already a token.
A token called FX. Yeah, a few days ago was the second sale of it.
Ah, that's right. Yeah.
Also, the first sale of it was sold within seconds. The second sale a few days ago, it took a bit longer, but also got sold out. And personally, I don't really like whether I'm involved with the project or not. I don't really like pushing people to to buy new tokens and assets and whatever. I do think that due diligence for each of us is quite key, and I don't think you should buy stuff just because they're launching or on sale or whatever. I think you should really do enough research and know what you're buying, because each of these tokens is an asset. And personally, when I hold most of these tokens, I try to hold them I try to only purchase stuff that I do actually, according to my investment thesis, is that are actually going to bring revenue and are there for the long run. And FX, the revenue sharing there is obviously not active yet, but just like the other tokens that Aladdin is making, whether it's the DAO's coin ALD or Concentrators CTR or Clever's Clev, mostly what Aladdin is doing is choosing the VE models in which you lock the tokens for a long term. And you want to receive a share of the revenue that it's created. And I think it's working quite well with CTR and with Clev, at least on my personal opinion, with the small possessions that I have on it. And definitely I think that FX can attract quite a lot of attention. I can already tell you that FX is also in contact with other protocols, because they kind of want to be like an important player on the DAO to DAO stuff. So expect some developments there, hopefully. And again, it will be easier to just follow the A-Team or the Aladdin server. and hopefully it gets going and gets some traction pretty quick. I think there's already some nice TVL there. I saw something yesterday.
Oh, so interesting. So you can mint. You can either get leveraged, right, by depositing some ETH, or you can come in and mint FETH and then add it to the rebalance pool and earn 22%. And I'm guessing that's paid out in Steth as well too.
And you can also come with ETH or with Steth as well. Like you don't have to come with
you can come with Steth. Nice. Well,
yeah,
that's
I'm pretty sure.
Well, they are at half of their cap right now. They're at 508 ETH, and that is half the amount that they're going for right now. They're going up to 1,000. And
yeah, but I believe that this cap of 1,000 will probably only be temporary. Like I think that if they reach it, hopefully very quickly, they won't keep that cap for that long.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting because FETH is almost like a stable coin. I mean, if the price of ETH goes up 10%, FETH only goes up 1%.
Yeah, that's the point.
So, yeah, if you're earning 22% right now, that's a pretty good farm at the moment, actually.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. It's
interesting.
It's a new concept. And by the way, I think that some of the, it's already inspired in a way, or at least happened a bit before some other stuff that's related, like the new Liquidity version, Liquidity V2. They do something which is in a way, I think, a bit similar. We had Robert a while ago when you remember, Sam, when the guys were in France. So I also told him something about that. Once he talked about what they're doing at Liquidity, I told him, I think that the guys at Aladdin are doing something quite similar with FX. And we had a Twitter space recently. The Aladdin had an official Twitter space with Liquidity, and we had Robert on and Token Bryce, and we kind of discussed both protocols. So feel free to also search for this space on the Aladdin DAO Twitter, because if you're interested in both on that whole narrative, there's quite a lot of interesting stuff that was said there, both on the Aladdin side by Charlene and the others and Kruger, and also by Robert and Dr. Bryce about liquidity stuff.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Wajid.
Thank you.
Really excited.
Good luck on your new way.
Yeah, first day. Also, thank you for coming on, Sam Kaz. Great to have you here. And thank you to our listeners and watchers across Twitter, YouTube, and Spotify, soon to be when I upload it. All of you out there, thank you so much. And especially that person who sent us a donation on Arbitrum. We have the address down here if you want to make some donations yourself. And support the Leviathan team for everything that we're doing here. So Garrett and DeFi Advisor, great to see you. It's Friday.
You too, Sam.
I've got my
You
pen.
too.
I've got my pen. It says Slava Bogu, Savonia, and Piatnica.
What does it mean?
Thank God it's Friday.
That's good.
Is that Polish?
It's Russian.
Russian.
Yeah. I found it this morning. It was laying around. So
cool.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Squid and Squidettes. We'll be back tomorrow.
Next week, right?
Oh, next week, Monday. Yeah, Monday.
How did you say the sentence in Russian again?
Slava Bogu, Сегодня пятница.
Friday.